The slap echoed through the marble lobby like a gunshot. A young woman in a burgundy uniform crashed against the reception desk, her neat blonde bun coming undone, blood trickling from her split lip. The man standing over her wore a $1,000 suit and a smile that belonged in hell. "You think you can say no to me?" He grabbed her hair, yanking her head back. What he didn't see was the man in military camouflage stepping out of the elevator behind him. What he didn't know was that God had just placed a warrior exactly where justice needed one. Before we continue, tell us where you're watching from in the comments. And if this story touches your heart, please subscribe and stay with us until the very end. Now, let the story begin. The lobby of the Grand Monarch Hotel was never quiet during the Christmas season. But at 9:47 p.m. on December 23rd, every sound stopped. Emma Winters had been working the front desk for 6 hours straight. Her feet ached, her back screamed, but she kept her smile in place, because that smile was worth $8.50 an hour. And $8.50 an hour was the difference between her mother living and dying. The elevator chimed. Emma looked up, and her stomach dropped. Brandon Hartwell stepped into the lobby with two friends, flanking him like bodyguards. His dark hair was slicked back with expensive gel. His suit cost more than Emma made in 3 months. And his eyes, those cold, hungry eyes, locked onto her like a predator spotting wounded prey. "Well, well," Brandon said, his voice carrying across the empty lobby. "Working late again, sweetheart?" Emma's hands trembled beneath the counter. She hid them. "Good evening, Mr. Hartwell. How can I help you?" Brandon leaned against the reception desk, close enough that she could smell whiskey on his breath. "You can help me by coming up to my suite." "I'm sorry, sir. I need to stay at my station." Brandon's smile didn't waver, but something shifted behind his eyes. "I wasn't asking." One of his friends laughed. The other pulled out his phone and started recording. Emma's heart hammered against her ribs. She'd heard stories about Brandon Hartwell. Every woman who worked here had heard stories. Maria from housekeeping had quit last month without explanation. Jennifer from the spa had transferred to another property. And Sarah, sweet, quiet Sarah, had simply vanished one night and never came back. "Mr. Hartwell," Emma said, fighting to keep her voice steady, "I really can't leave the desk. Perhaps I could send someone else." "I don't want someone else." Brandon reached across the counter and grabbed her wrist. His grip was iron. "I want you." Pain shot up Emma's arm. She gasped, trying to pull away. "Please, you're hurting me." "Good." Brandon's smile widened. "Maybe that'll teach you to listen." He yanked her forward, and Emma's hips slammed against the edge of the counter. Tears sprang to her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She would not cry. She would not give him that satisfaction. "Let me go," she said, her voice shaking but clear. "I said no." The word hung in the air like a death sentence. Brandon's face twisted. The charming mask cracked, revealing something ugly underneath. Something that had always been there, waiting. "No?" he laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Do you know who I am? Do you know who my father is?" "I know exactly who you are, sir." And I still said no. The first slap came without warning. Emma's head snapped to the side. Stars exploded across her vision. She tasted copper, blood from where her teeth had cut the inside of her cheek. "You stupid little—" Brandon grabbed the front of her uniform and hauled her halfway across the counter. "My father owns this hotel. He owns this city. He owns you. Nobody owns me." The words came out before Emma could stop them. Quiet, defiant, true. Brandon's eyes went wide with disbelief, then narrow with rage. He backhanded her across the face. Emma went down hard, crashing against the marble floor. Her carefully pinned hair tumbled loose around her shoulders. Blood dripped from her split lip onto the polished stone. Brandon's friends were still laughing. still recording. "Get up," Brandon ordered. Emma didn't move. "I said, get up!" He grabbed a fistful of her blonde hair and yanked her to her knees. Emma cried out. She couldn't help it. The pain was blinding. "You're going to learn respect," Brandon hissed, his face inches from hers. "One way or another, you're going to learn—" "Let her go." The voice came from behind Brandon. Low, steady, dangerous. Brandon froze. His friends stopped laughing. The man who had spoken stood near the elevator bank, a military duffel bag slung over one shoulder. He was tall, lean, built like a weapon rather than a showpiece. His short brown hair was touched with gray at the temples. His face was weathered, marked by years of sun and wind and things that left deeper scars than weather. He wore a United States Navy working uniform, digital camouflage in woodland green and brown, and he wore it like a second skin. At his heel stood a German shepherd. The dog was magnificent, adult, powerful, with a coat of tan and black that gleamed under the lobby lights. He didn't growl. He didn't bark. He simply watched, amber eyes fixed on Brandon with an intelligence that was almost human. "I said," the man repeated, taking one step forward, "let her go." Brandon released Emma's hair and turned slowly. "And who the hell are you?" "Lieutenant Commander Marcus Cole, United States Navy." Marcus's voice was calm, almost conversational. "And you have exactly 3 seconds to step away from that woman before I make you step away." Brandon laughed. It came out high and nervous. "Do you have any idea who you're talking to?" "I know exactly who I'm talking to." Marcus took another step. The German shepherd moved with him, perfectly synchronized. "I'm talking to a man who just committed assault and battery in front of multiple witnesses and at least one recording device." Brandon's friends exchanged glances. One of them lowered his phone. "That's right," Marcus continued. "Whatever you recorded is evidence now. Virginia Code Section 18.2-57. Assault and battery. Class 1 misdemeanor. Up to 12 months in jail and a $2,500 fine." He paused. "For each count." Brandon's face went pale, then red. "My father will have you court-martialed. He'll have you— Your father doesn't have jurisdiction over military personnel, son. And even if he did, I'm on leave, which means right now I'm just a private citizen who witnessed a crime." Marcus smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. A private citizen with 20 years of combat training and a very protective dog. The German shepherd's ears pricked forward at the word dog. A low rumble started in his chest. Not quite a growl, but a warning. Brandon took an involuntary step back. "Here's what's going to happen," Marcus said. "You're going to walk to that elevator. You're going to go back to your room. And you're going to pray that this young woman doesn't press charges. Because if she does, I will personally ensure that every major news outlet in Virginia knows exactly what happened here tonight." "You can't— My father—" "Your father isn't here." Marcus's voice hardened. "I am." For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Brandon's shoulders dropped. Just slightly. Just enough. "This isn't over," he said, his voice shaking with impotent rage. "You have no idea what you just started." "I know exactly what I started." Marcus held Brandon's gaze. "The question is whether you're smart enough to end it." Brandon turned and walked toward the elevator. His friends followed, suddenly very interested in looking anywhere except at Marcus or the woman on the floor. At the elevator doors, Brandon looked back. His eyes found Emma, and what she saw in them made her blood run cold. "We'll finish this later," he said softly, "when your guard dog isn't around." The elevator doors closed. Marcus was at Emma's side in an instant, kneeling beside her on the cold marble floor. "Are you hurt? Can you stand?" Emma tried to answer, but her voice wouldn't come. The adrenaline that had been holding her together was fading, and in its place came trembling. Deep, uncontrollable trembling. "Easy," Marcus said. His voice was different now, gentle, calm, like someone talking to a frightened animal. "You're safe. He's gone. Can you look at me?" Emma forced herself to meet his eyes. They were gray, she noticed. Gray and steady and kind. "There you go," Marcus said. "That's good. Now I'm going to help you stand up. Is that okay?" Emma nodded. Marcus's hand was warm and strong as he helped her to her feet. She swayed, and he steadied her, careful not to grip too hard. "My name's Marcus," he said, "and this is Titan." The German shepherd had moved closer, his amber eyes fixed on Emma with what looked almost like concern. Without thinking, Emma reached down and touched his head. His fur was soft, warm, alive. Titan leaned into her touch and made a soft sound, not quite a whine, but something close. "He likes you," Marcus said. "He doesn't like everyone." Emma tried to smile, but her split lips screamed in protest. She winced, and Marcus's expression darkened. "You need medical attention. Is there a first aid kit? Someone I can call?" "I'm fine." The words came out automatically. Emma had been saying, "I'm fine," for so long it was like breathing. "You're not fine. You're bleeding." "It's just a cut." "It's more than a cut." Marcus studied her face, and Emma had the uncomfortable feeling that he was seeing more than she wanted to show. "How long has he been doing this?" Emma's breath caught. "What?" "That wasn't the first time. I can tell by the way you reacted. You weren't surprised. You were resigned." Marcus's voice was quiet. "How long?" Emma looked away. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do." The silence stretched between them. Titan pressed closer to Emma's leg, a warm, solid presence. "I should get back to work," Emma finally said. "My shift isn't over for another 2 hours." "You're not seriously going back to work after that?" "I don't have a choice. I need this job." Marcus started to argue, but something in Emma's face stopped him. Instead, he asked, "Is there someone I can call? Family? A friend?" Emma thought of her mother, lying in a hospital bed 15 miles away, fighting a battle she couldn't win without help. She thought of the medical bills stacked on the kitchen table at home. She thought of the $10,000 Brandon's father had offered her last month to forget a similar incident. "No," she said. "There's no one." Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a card. "This is my cell number. If anything happens, anything at all, you call me." Emma looked at the card but didn't take it. "Why are you helping me? You don't even know me." "I don't need to know you." Marcus pressed the card into her hand. "I just need to know that what he did was wrong." Emma stared at him. In 22 years of life, she had learned one truth above all others. Nobody helped for free. Everyone wanted something. But Marcus's eyes held nothing but quiet resolve, and Titan's warmth against her leg felt like something she hadn't experienced in a very long time. Safety. "Thank you," Emma whispered, "for stopping him." "I didn't stop anything. I just delayed it." Marcus's jaw tightened. Men like him don't give up. They just get smarter. Before Emma could respond, a door slammed somewhere in the back offices. Footsteps approached, quick, purposeful. A man emerged from the staff corridor. He was in his late 50s, tall and silver-haired, wearing a suit that probably cost more than Emma's annual salary. His face was handsome in the way of aging politicians, carefully maintained, artfully dignified. Victor Hartwell, Brandon's father, the owner of the Grand Monarch Hotel and half the city besides. What happened here? Victor's voice was controlled, but his eyes swept the scene with calculating precision. The blood on Emma's face, the military man beside her, the German shepherd watching him with unsettling intensity. Your son happened, Marcus said flatly. He assaulted this woman. Assaulted? Victor's eyebrows rose. That's a serious accusation. It's not an accusation. It's a fact. I witnessed it. Victor turned to Emma. His expression was concerned, paternal, warm. It was also completely false. Emma, dear, are you all right? Let me call Dr. Patterson. She doesn't need your doctor, Marcus cut in. She needs to file a police report. Victor's warmth evaporated. I don't believe I was speaking to you. And I don't believe I care. Marcus stepped between Victor and Emma. I know who you are, Mr. Hartwell. I know what your son is. And I know exactly how many times you've made problems like this disappear. The lobby went very still. Victor's eyes narrowed. Be very careful about your next words, soldier. I'm not a soldier. I'm a sailor. And my next words are these. If anything happens to this woman, tonight, tomorrow, or any day after, I will make it my personal mission to ensure that every crime your family has ever committed sees the light of day. For a moment, something flickered in Victor's eyes, something that might have been fear. Then it was gone, replaced by the smooth mask of power. You have no idea who you're threatening. I'm not threatening anyone, Mr. Hartwell. I'm making a promise. Marcus turned to Emma. Come on, I'm taking you to a hospital. She has a shift to finish, Victor said sharply. Her shift is over. She works for me. I decide when she works for you, she doesn't belong to you. Marcus's voice cut like a blade. There's a difference, though I suspect your son hasn't learned it yet. Victor's face went red, then white. His hands clenched at his sides. This isn't finished, he said quietly. Not by a long shot. On that, Marcus replied, we agree. He guided Emma toward the front entrance, Titan walking close at her other side. Behind them, Victor Hartwell stood alone in the empty lobby, his expression unreadable. But in his pocket, his phone was already buzzing with a text from his son. Handle it, or I will. Victor typed back a single word. Done. Outside, the winter air hit Emma like a wall. She shivered, realizing for the first time that she'd left her coat inside. Her thin uniform offered no protection against the December cold. Without a word, Marcus shrugged off his camouflage jacket and draped it over her shoulders. It was warm, heavy, and smelled faintly of cedar and gun oil. You'll freeze, Emma protested weakly. I've been colder. Marcus scanned the parking lot, his body tense, alert. Where's your car? I don't have one. I take the bus. The bus doesn't run this late. I know. I usually walk. Marcus stopped walking. You walk home? At this hour? In this neighborhood? It's only 4 miles. 4 miles. Marcus shook his head slowly. Jesus. Emma felt her cheeks flush with something that might have been shame. Not everyone can afford. I'm not judging you. Marcus's voice softened. I'm angry for you. There's a difference. Emma didn't know what to say to that. In her experience, anger was never for her. It was always at her. Come on, Marcus said. I'll drive you home. You don't have to. I know I don't have to. I want to. He met her eyes. Let me help you. Please. That word, please, broke something in Emma. A wall she hadn't known she was holding up. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Marcus's truck was a battered Ford F-150, at least 15 years old, with mud on the wheel wells and a dent in the passenger door. Titan jumped into the back seat with practiced ease, settling down with his head on his paws. Sorry about the mess, Marcus said as Emma climbed in. I've been driving for 2 days straight. From where? San Diego. My SEAL team just finished a training rotation. You drove across the country? Titan doesn't like planes. Marcus started the engine. Where am I going? Emma gave him the address, a rundown apartment complex on the east side of town, in a neighborhood where police sirens were lullabies and gunshots were alarm clocks. Marcus didn't comment. He just drove. For a while, neither of them spoke. The heater hummed, slowly thawing Emma's frozen fingers. In the back seat, Titan's breathing was steady and calm. Why are you really here? Emma finally asked. In Virginia, I mean. This doesn't seem like a vacation destination. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. There's a VA hospital about 15 miles from here. St. Christopher's. I know it. My mother is there. Marcus glanced at her. Your mother? Cancer. The word came out flat. Stage 3. She's been fighting for 2 years. I'm sorry. Me too. Emma stared out the window at the passing streetlights. She's the reason I took this job. The Grand Monarch pays better than most hotels. Better tips, better overtime. She laughed, but it was a hollow sound. I thought I was being smart. You were being brave. Those aren't the same thing, but they're both valuable. Emma turned to look at him. Why are you going to St. Christopher's? Marcus's hands tightened on the steering wheel. There's a man there. His name is Commander William Hayes. He was my mentor. Taught me everything I know about being a SEAL. About being a man. He paused. He has 3 weeks to live. Maybe less. I'm sorry. Don't be. He lived well. He served his country. He made a difference. Marcus's voice was rough. That's more than most people can say. They drove in silence for another few minutes. Then Emma said, You didn't have to intervene tonight. You could have just walked away. Most people would have. I'm not most people. I can see that. Emma pulled his jacket tighter around her shoulders. What happens now? Brandon isn't going to let this go. His father definitely won't. I know. So what do we do? Marcus pulled the truck to a stop in front of Emma's apartment building. It was worse than he'd expected. Cracked windows, graffiti on the walls, a flickering streetlight that buzzed like an angry wasp. But he kept his expression neutral. Judgment was a luxury Emma couldn't afford. For tonight, he said, you get some sleep. Lock your door. Don't open it for anyone. And tomorrow? Tomorrow, I start asking questions. Marcus met her eyes. There's something wrong in that hotel. More than just a spoiled rich kid with a temper. I felt it the moment I walked in, and I'm going to find out what it is. Emma wanted to argue, wanted to tell him that this wasn't his fight, that he should walk away before the Hartwells destroyed him too. But she was so tired of fighting alone. Thank you, she said, for everything. Don't thank me yet. We're just getting started. Emma opened the door and stepped out into the cold. Titan whined softly from the back seat, and she turned to scratch his ears one last time. Take care of him, she told the dog. He seems like someone who forgets to take care of himself. Titan's tail wagged. Marcus almost smiled. I'll check on you tomorrow. Keep my number close. Emma nodded. She walked toward her building, then stopped and looked back. Marcus? Yeah? The man at the hospital, your mentor. What did he teach you that was so important? Marcus was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. That the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. Emma stood there in the cold December air, Marcus's words echoing in her ears. Then she turned and walked inside. The moment her door closed, Emma sank to the floor. The tears came then, great heaving sobs that shook her entire body. She pressed her hand to her mouth, trying to muffle the sound, terrified that the neighbors would hear. She cried for the pain in her face, and her wrist, and her ribs. She cried for her mother, wasting away in a hospital bed. She cried for herself, trapped in a life that felt like quicksand, pulling her down no matter how hard she struggled. And she cried for something else, something she couldn't name, but felt with overwhelming force. Hope. Terrible, dangerous, devastating hope. Because for the first time and longer than she could remember, someone had seen her, really seen her. And instead of looking away, he had stepped forward. Emma didn't know who Marcus Cole really was. She didn't know why he'd intervened or what he planned to do next. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. Tonight, everything had changed. 2 miles away, in the penthouse suite of the Grand Monarch Hotel, Brandon Hartwell threw a crystal decanter against the wall. "Who does he think he is?" Brandon screamed. "Some washed-up soldier thinks he can threaten me? In my own hotel?" His father sat in a leather chair, watching with cold patience. "Are you finished?" "Finished? I'm just getting started. I want him destroyed. I want him court-martialed. I want—" "You want." Victor's voice cut through Brandon's tantrum like a knife. "That's always been your problem, son. You want without thinking. You take without calculating. And now your wants have created a problem." Brandon went still. "What do you mean?" Victor rose from his chair and walked to the window. The city sprawled below them, glittering with Christmas lights and false cheer. "I mean that man is no ordinary soldier. I made some calls. Lieutenant Commander Marcus Cole, United States Navy SEALs. 3 combat tours in Afghanistan, 2 Bronze Stars, a Silver Star. Classified operations across 4 continents. Victor's jaw tightened. "He's killed more men than you've hired." Brandon's face went pale. "So what do we do?" "We do nothing, for now." Victor turned to face his son. "You stay away from that receptionist. You stay away from that soldier. And you keep your temper under control until I figure out how to make this go away." "And if he talks? If he goes to the police?" Victor smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "The police chief owes me his career. The district attorney owes me his house. And Senator Morrison owes me things I won't mention in polite company." He picked up his phone. "Marcus Cole may be dangerous, but in this city, I am more dangerous still." Brandon nodded slowly, his fear giving way to something uglier. "What about the girl?" Victor's eyes hardened. "What about her?" "She'll talk. She'll file a report. She'll do nothing." Victor's voice was ice. "Because by tomorrow morning, she won't have a job to protect. She won't have a reputation to defend. And she won't have a single person in this city willing to believe a word she says." Brandon smiled. "And if that doesn't work?" Victor Hartwell stared out at the city he owned, the city he controlled, the city where justice was just another commodity to be bought and sold. "Then we move to Plan B." "What's Plan B?" Victor didn't answer. He didn't need to. In his truck, parked outside Emma's apartment building, Marcus Cole sat in darkness. He hadn't driven away. He wouldn't. Not until he was sure she was safe for the night. Titan rested his head on the center console, amber eyes watching his handler with quiet concern. "I know, boy," Marcus murmured, scratching behind the dog's ears. "I know." He pulled out his phone and dialed a number from memory. It rang twice before a gruff voice answered. You have any idea what time it is? Hello to you too, Fuller. Commander James Fuller, Naval Intelligence retired, groaned into the phone. Cole, I swear to God, if you're calling about another conspiracy theory— No theory this time, just a name. Victor Hartwell. Silence on the other end. Fuller? Where did you hear that name? Marcus's grip tightened on the phone. His son just beat a woman half to death in front of me. Why? What do you know? Another long pause, then Fuller's voice came back, lower, more careful. Victor Hartwell is on 3 federal watch lists: human trafficking, money laundering, possible connections to organized crime in Eastern Europe. We've been trying to build a case against him for 5 years. What's stopping you? Evidence keeps disappearing. Witnesses keep recanting. 2 FBI agents who got too close ended up dead. Car accidents, officially. Unofficially, Fuller trailed off. Marcus stared at Emma's building, at the flickering streetlight, at the shadows gathering like wolves. Fuller, I need everything you have on him. Every file, every suspicion, every rumor. Cole, listen to me. This isn't some Taliban warlord you can snipe from a hillside. Hartwell has connections you can't imagine. If you go after him, I'm not going after him. Marcus's voice was quiet, steady, and absolutely certain. I'm going through him. Fuller was silent for a long moment. Then he sighed. I'll send what I have, but Cole, be careful. The last guy who tried to take down Victor Hartwell is in a grave somewhere in Chesapeake Bay. Understood. Marcus hung up. Titan whined softly. I know, boy, Marcus said again, but we've faced worse odds, and we're still here. He looked up at Emma's window. A single light glowed behind thin curtains. She was still awake, still afraid. But not alone. Not anymore. Marcus started the truck and finally drove away, his mind already calculating angles, analyzing threats, planning approaches. He had come to Virginia to say goodbye to a dying friend. Instead, he had found a war. And Lieutenant Commander Marcus Cole had never lost a war in his life. He wasn't about to start now. Emma didn't sleep that night. Every creak of the old building made her jump. Every shadow felt like a threat. At 6:47 a.m., her phone rang. She grabbed it with trembling hands. Hello? Miss Winters? The voice was crisp, professional, unfamiliar. This is Helen Crawford from Human Resources at the Grand Monarch Hotel. You're required to report to the administrative office at 8 a.m. sharp. Emma's heart stopped. I have the morning shift at the front desk. Your shift has been reassigned. 8 a.m. Don't be late. The line went dead. Emma stared at the phone in her hand. She knew what this meant. She had known since the moment Brandon's first slap landed. But she got dressed anyway. She pinned her hair back into its neat bun. She covered the bruise on her cheek with makeup she couldn't afford. And she walked out of her apartment with her head held high. Because Emma Winters had learned something in 22 years of poverty. Dignity was the one thing no one could take from you. Unless you left them. The administrative office was on the top floor of the hotel, in a wing that regular employees never entered. Emma had to show her ID 3 times before they let her through. The conference room was cold, deliberately cold. Emma sat in a hard chair and waited, her hands folded in her lap, her heart pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. The door opened. Victor Hartwell entered first, followed by a woman Emma didn't recognize, middle-aged, sharp-featured, carrying a leather folder like a weapon. Miss Winters. Victor's voice was warm, concerned, paternal. Thank you for coming on such short notice. How are you feeling this morning? Emma didn't answer. She had learned that silence was sometimes the only armor the powerless possessed. Victor sat across from her. The woman remained standing, watching Emma with eyes that missed nothing. "This is Margaret Chen," Victor said. "She's our corporate counsel. She's here to help us resolve this unfortunate situation." "Situation," Emma repeated quietly. "The incident last night." Victor leaned forward, his expression perfectly calibrated to convey sympathy. "I want you to know how deeply sorry I am. My son's behavior was inexcusable." Emma waited. There was always a but. "But," Victor continued, "I'm sure you can understand the complexity of the situation. Brandon has been under tremendous pressure lately. The stress of running the family business, the expectations placed upon him, he beat me." The words hung in the air. Simple, undeniable. Victor's mask flickered, just for a moment. "He made a mistake," Victor said carefully. "A serious mistake. And he's prepared to make amends." Margaret Chen opened her leather folder and slid a document across the table. "This is a settlement agreement. In exchange for your signature on a non-disclosure clause, the Hartwell family is prepared to offer you a one-time payment of $50,000. Emma's breath caught. $50,000. Her mother's treatment cost $6,000 a month. $50,000 would buy almost a year of hope, a year of fighting. "All you have to do," Victor said softly, "is sign this paper stating that you fell and injured yourself accidentally. A simple misunderstanding. No harm, no foul." Emma looked at the document. The numbers swam before her eyes. $50,000. She thought of her mother's thin face, her mother's tired eyes, her mother's voice saying, "Don't worry about me, sweetheart. I'll be fine." But her mother wouldn't be fine. They both knew it. Without treatment, she had 6 months. Maybe less. Emma's hand moved toward the pen, then stopped. She thought of Maria from housekeeping, who had quit without explanation. Jennifer from the spa, who had transferred away. Sarah, who had vanished. How many of them had sat in this same chair? How many had taken the money? How many had signed away their voices so that Brandon Hartwell could keep hunting? "No." The word came out small, but certain. Victor blinked. "I'm sorry?" "I said no." Emma pushed the document back across the table. "I won't sign it." Margaret Chen's expression didn't change, but something shifted behind her eyes. "Miss Winters, I don't think you understand the generosity of this offer." "I understand perfectly." Emma stood up. Her legs were shaking, but her voice was steady. "Your client's son assaulted me. He hit me. He grabbed my hair. He threatened me. And you want me to sign a piece of paper saying it never happened?" "Miss Winters, my name is Emma." She met Victor's eyes. "And the answer is no." Victor's warmth evaporated. In its place was something cold and hard and very, very dangerous. "Sit down, Miss Winters." "I'd rather stand." "I said, sit down." Emma didn't move. Victor rose slowly from his chair. He was taller than she'd realized, and in this moment, with the mask finally off, he was terrifying. "Do you have any idea what you're doing?" His voice was soft, almost gentle. That made it worse. "Do you have any idea what I can do to you?" "I have some idea." "No, you don't." Victor stepped closer. "I can make sure you never work in this city again. I can make sure your mother's hospital bills become someone else's problem. I can make sure that every landlord, every employer, every person you've ever known suddenly decides that Emma Winters is not worth the trouble." Emma's heart was pounding so hard she could barely breathe, but she didn't look away. "You can do all of that," she said quietly. but you can't make me lie." Something flickered in Victor's eyes. Not respect. Men like him didn't respect women like her, but something adjacent to it. Surprise, maybe. The surprise of a predator encountering prey that refused to run. "You're fired," Victor said flatly. "Effective immediately. Security will escort you out." "Fine." "And Miss Winters?" Victor smiled, and it was the most frightening thing Emma had ever seen. "If you speak to anyone about what happened, the police, the press, anyone, I will destroy you. Not just your career, not just your reputation. You." Emma turned and walked toward the door. Her hands were shaking. Her knees were weak. But she kept walking. At the door, she paused. "Mr. Hartwell?" "What?" "Your son didn't just make a mistake last night. He made an enemy." Emma looked back over her shoulder. "So did you." She walked out. The security guards escorted her down in the service elevator, the one for trash and dirty laundry. They didn't let her collect her belongings. They didn't let her say goodbye to anyone. They deposited her on the sidewalk like garbage and went back inside. Emma stood there in the cold December morning, her neat bun coming loose, her carefully applied makeup doing nothing to hide the bruise that had darkened overnight. She had no job, no income, no way to pay her mother's medical bills. But she had her voice, and she had refused to sell it. That had to count for something. It had to. A battered Ford F-150 pulled up to the curb. Marcus Cole stepped out, Titan at his heels. He took one look at Emma's face and understood everything. "They fired you." Emma nodded. She couldn't speak. If she spoke, she would cry. And if she cried, she would break. Marcus didn't offer sympathy. He didn't offer platitudes. He just opened the passenger door. "Get in." Emma got in. Titan jumped into the back seat and immediately pressed his nose against Emma's shoulder. She reached back and buried her fingers in his fur, holding on like a drowning woman clutching a life preserver. Marcus drove in silence for several minutes. Then he asked, "Did you sign anything?" "No." "Did you admit to anything?" "No." "Did you threaten them back?" Emma almost laughed. "I told them they'd made an enemy." Marcus glanced at her. "Good." "Good?" Emma shook her head. "I just lost my job. I have no savings. My mother's treatment costs $6,000 a month. How is any of this good?" "Because you're still free." Marcus's voice was quiet but certain. "The moment you sign their paper, you become their property. Your silence becomes their weapon. Your shame becomes their shield." He pulled the truck to a stop at a red light and met her eyes. "You chose freedom over money. That's not nothing, Emma. That's everything." Emma wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe him. "What do I do now?" she whispered. "Now we fight." "Fight how? They own this city. You heard what he said." "I heard a scared man making threats." Marcus pulled out his phone. "Victor Hartwell thinks he's untouchable because no one's ever touched him. But I know people who've spent their careers touching untouchable men." "What people?" "Friends from my old life. Intelligence officers. Federal investigators. The kind of people who don't impress easily and don't scare at all." Emma stared at him. "Why are you doing this? This isn't your fight." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. The light turned green. He drove. Finally, he spoke. "My wife's name was Catherine. We met when I was 23, just finished BUD/S training. She was a nurse at the base hospital. Prettiest smile I ever saw." Emma waited, sensing the weight of what was coming. She worked for a hospital administrator in San Diego, a powerful man, a connected man. When she found out he was falsifying patient records, billing insurance for procedures that never happened. She reported him. Marcus's hands tightened on the steering wheel. The investigation went nowhere. Witnesses disappeared. Evidence vanished. And then, one night, Catherine was driving home from work, and a truck ran a red light and hit her driver's side at 60 miles an hour. Emma's hand flew to her mouth. The driver was never found. The case was closed as an accident. Marcus's voice was hollow. But I knew. I've always known. And I promised myself that if I ever had the chance to stop another man like that, I wouldn't hesitate. Marcus, I'm so sorry. Don't be sorry. Be angry. Marcus looked at her, and his eyes burned with a fire that had been smoldering for years. I couldn't save Catherine, but I can help you, and I will, no matter what it costs. Emma didn't know what to say, so she just nodded. They drove to St. Mary's Hospital in silence. Grace Winters was having a good day. She was sitting up in bed when Emma and Marcus entered, her thin face brightening at the sight of her daughter. Emma, sweetheart, what are you doing here? Shouldn't you be at work? Emma had promised herself she wouldn't cry. That promise lasted exactly 3 seconds. She collapsed into her mother's arms and sobbed. The whole story poured out. Brandon's assault, Marcus's intervention, Victor's threats, her firing. Everything she'd been holding back came flooding out in a torrent of pain and fear. Grace held her daughter and let her cry. Her frail arms were surprisingly strong, and her voice was steady as she murmured words of comfort. When Emma finally calmed, Grace looked up at Marcus, who had remained near the door, giving them privacy. You're the one who helped her. Marcus nodded. Yes, ma'am. Come here. Marcus approached the bed. Grace reached out and took his hand in both of hers. Her grip was weak, but warm. Thank you, Grace said simply. Thank you for protecting my baby. I only did what anyone should have done. No, Grace shook her head. You did what no one else would do. There's a difference. She studied his face with eyes that saw more than they should. You've lost someone. Someone you couldn't protect. Marcus didn't flinch, but something in his eyes shifted. Yes, ma'am. Then you understand why this matters. Grace squeezed his hand. You understand why my daughter matters. I do. Grace nodded slowly. Then she turned to Emma. You did the right thing, sweetheart. You refused to sell your soul, even when they offered you money you desperately needed. I've never been prouder of you. But, Mom, your treatment is not more important than your integrity. Grace's voice was firm. I would rather die with a daughter who has her honor than live because she sold it. Emma started crying again. Marcus stepped back, giving them space. But as he watched mother and daughter hold each other, something hardened in his chest. Victor Hartwell had made a mistake last night. He had threatened a woman who had no one to protect her. Now she had someone. And that someone had spent 20 years learning how to dismantle men who thought they were gods. Marcus stepped into the hallway and dialed Fuller's number. Tell me you have something. I have a lot of somethings. Fuller's voice was grim. You want the bad news or the worse news? Start talking. Victor Hartwell's hotel is a front. The Grand Monarch has been flagged in 3 separate federal investigations: human trafficking, money laundering, and tax evasion. Every investigation has been shut down within 6 months. How? Witnesses recant. Evidence disappears. Investigators get transferred or retire early. Fuller paused. Or die. How many dead? 2 FBI agents, 1 IRS auditor, a local reporter who got too close. Fuller's voice dropped. And at least 15 women connected to the hotel who have simply vanished over the past decade. Marcus felt ice spread through his veins. Vanished how? No forwarding addresses, no family contact. Some of them had police reports filed about Brandon Hartwell right before they disappeared. The reports were all withdrawn or dismissed. Jesus. It gets worse. I found a pattern in the hotel's guest registry. Certain VIP suites are booked under shell company names. Always the same 3 companies. Always paid in cash. Always for exactly 1 night. And the women who work those floors? They have a turnover rate of about 6 weeks. Marcus closed his eyes. He knew what that meant. He'd seen it overseas. The trafficking networks. The girls moved like cargo. The men who treated human beings like commodities. I need names, Marcus said. Companies, contacts, anyone involved. I can get you some. But Cole, listen to me. This is bigger than one rich kid with a temper. The Hartwell operation has connections to organized crime in Eastern Europe. These are not people who negotiate. They eliminate. Then we'll have to eliminate them first. Silence on the line. You're serious? Dead serious. Marcus looked back through the window at Emma holding her mother's hand. I'm not letting them hurt anyone else. Whatever it takes. Fuller sighed heavily. I'll send you everything I have. But Cole, watch your back. These people have eyes everywhere. So do I. Marcus hung up and returned to Emma's room. We need to talk, he said, but not here. Emma looked up, her face still streaked with tears. What's wrong? Everything. Marcus's jaw tightened. And nothing you can hear in front of your mother. Grace's eyes narrowed. Young man, if this concerns my daughter, it concerns me. Ma'am, with respect, I may be dying, Commander Cole, but I'm not deaf, and I'm not stupid. Grace's voice was steel, wrapped in velvet. Whatever you've found, I want to know. Marcus hesitated. Then he pulled a chair close to the bed. The Hartwells aren't just wealthy bullies. They're criminals. Serious criminals. The hotel is a front for human trafficking. And the women who've tried to speak out against Brandon over the years have disappeared. Emma's face went white. Disappeared? At least 15 that we know of. Maybe more. Grace's hand tightened on her daughter's. And you think they might try to disappear Emma? I think they've already threatened to. Victor told her he would destroy her. Men like him don't make idle threats. So what do we do? Emma's voice was barely a whisper. We go on the offensive. Marcus leaned forward. I have contacts in federal law enforcement. People who've been trying to build a case against the Hartwells for years. If we can give them evidence, real, solid evidence that can't be buried, we can bring the whole operation down. What kind of evidence? Witnesses, documents, financial records. Marcus met Emma's eyes. And testimony. From someone who experienced Brandon's violence firsthand and refused to be silenced. You mean me? I mean you. Emma was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, Maria, from housekeeping. Who? She quit last month, right after working a shift on the VIP floor. She wouldn't tell anyone why, but I saw bruises on her arms. The same kind Brandon gave me. Marcus pulled out his phone. Do you have her contact information? No, but I know where she lives. We used to take the same bus. Can you take me there? Emma looked at her mother. Grace nodded slowly. Go, Grace said. Find the truth, and when you do, burn them down. Mom, I mean it, Emma. Grace's eyes were fierce. These men have hurt too many people. It's time someone stopped them. She looked at Marcus. You take care of my daughter. With my life, ma'am. See that you do. They found Maria Rodriguez in a cramped apartment on the south side of town. 4 blocks from the bus stop where Emma used to see her every morning. When Maria opened the door and saw Emma, her face went pale. "Emma? What are you—" Her eyes darted to Marcus, then to Titan, then back to Emma. "You shouldn't be here. I know, but I need to talk to you. I can't. I told you, I can't. Brandon attacked me last night." Maria froze. "He hit me, right in the hotel lobby, in front of witnesses." Emma stepped closer. "I refused to sign their settlement. I refused to stay silent. And now they've fired me and threatened to destroy my life." Maria's hands were shaking. "Emma, you don't understand. Then help me understand." Emma's voice broke. "Please, Maria. I know something happened to you. I know they hurt you too. If we work together, they'll kill us." Maria's voice was barely audible. "You don't know what they do to girls who talk. You don't know what happens in those basement rooms." Marcus stepped forward. "What basement rooms?" Maria looked at him, really looked at him for the first time. Something in his posture, his bearing, his steady eyes seemed to reach her. "Who are you?" "My name is Marcus Cole. I'm a Navy SEAL, and I've spent 20 years protecting people from men like the Hartwells." Maria's lip trembled. "Can you protect me?" "Yes." "Can you promise they won't find me?" "I can promise that if they try, they'll regret it." Maria stood there for a long moment, her whole body tense with fear. Then, slowly, she stepped back from the door. "Come in, and lock the door behind you." The story Maria told made Emma's blood run cold. The VIP floors were not for hotel guests. They were for girls, young women, some barely 18, brought in through a network that stretched from Eastern Europe to South America. They arrived in the middle of the night, stayed for a few days, and then vanished. "They told us they were temporary workers," Maria whispered, "that they were here on training programs. But I saw their faces. I saw the fear in their eyes. And I heard what happened behind those doors." "What did you hear?" Marcus asked quietly. Maria couldn't meet his eyes. "Screaming, crying, and sometimes silence. The worst kind of silence." "What happened to you?" Maria's hand moved unconsciously to her arm, covering the spot where Emma had once seen bruises. "I was assigned to clean one of the VIP suites. The door was supposed to be locked, but someone had left it open. I went inside and—" Her voice broke. "There was blood on the sheets, on the floor, and Brandon Hartwell was standing there with a girl who couldn't have been more than 17. Emma's hand flew to her mouth. "He saw me. He grabbed me. He said if I ever told anyone what I saw, he would—" Maria shook her head, unable to continue. "He would what?" Marcus pressed gently. "He said he would make me disappear, like the others." Marcus and Emma exchanged looks. "Maria," Marcus said, "I need you to tell this story to someone, a federal prosecutor, someone who can actually stop these people." "I can't. They have people everywhere. The police, the courts." "Not everyone." Marcus pulled out his phone. "I have a contact at the FBI's Human Trafficking Task Force. Her name is Special Agent Rachel Torres. She's been building a case against the Hartwells for 3 years, and she's been waiting for a witness brave enough to come forward." Maria's eyes widened. "The FBI is investigating them?" "Yes, but they need evidence. They need testimony. They need someone who saw what you saw." "And if I testify, what happens to me?" "Witness protection, new identity, new life. They can't touch you." Maria looked at Emma. "Are you going to testify too?" Emma nodded slowly. "I don't have a choice. If I don't, they'll just keep hurting people." And if we fail? If they find out and come for us? Marcus's voice was iron. Then they'll have to go through me first. Maria was quiet for a long moment. Her hands had stopped shaking. Something had changed in her eyes. Fear giving way to something harder. Something that looked almost like hope. "Okay," she whispered. "I'll do it. I'll tell them everything." Marcus called Agent Torres from Maria's apartment. "I have 2 witnesses," he said without preamble. "Both women, both with first-hand experience of Brandon Hartwell's violence. One of them saw evidence of trafficking." Torres was silent for exactly 3 seconds. Then, "Where are you?" Marcus gave her the address. "Don't move. I'll be there in an hour." "And Torres? These women are in danger, real danger." "I know. I've been tracking the Hartwells long enough to know exactly what they're capable of." Torres's voice hardened. "But I've also been waiting long enough. This is the break we've needed. We're not going to waste it." She hung up. Marcus lowered his phone and turned to Emma and Maria. "We have 1 hour before the FBI arrives. I need you both to write down everything you remember, every detail, every name, every date. The more specific you can be, the stronger the case." Emma nodded, but her face was pale. "Marcus, what if this doesn't work? What if they bury this investigation like all the others?" "They won't." "How can you be sure?" Marcus looked at her, and something in his expression made her breath catch. "Because I'm not going to let them." Outside Maria's apartment, a black SUV idled at the corner. Inside, a man in an expensive suit spoke quietly into his phone. "We have a problem. The receptionist found Rodriguez, and there's a Navy officer with them." Victor Hartwell's voice came through cold and clear. "What kind of Navy officer?" "SEAL. The same one from last night." Silence on the line. Then Victor spoke again, his voice barely above a whisper. "Handle it." "Sir?" "I said handle it. The Rodriguez woman knows too much. And if Cole thinks he can threaten my family, he needs to learn what happens to threats in my city." The man in the SUV nodded slowly. "Understood." He hung up and made another call. "Mobilize the team. 3 targets. Apartment 4B. The response came back in a single word. "Done." Inside the apartment, Titan's ears suddenly pricked forward. A low growl rumbled in his throat. Marcus was instantly alert. "What is it, boy?" Titan moved to the window, his body tense, his amber eyes fixed on something outside. Marcus followed his gaze. A black SUV. Tinted windows. Engine running. "Get away from the windows," Marcus said sharply. "Now!" Emma and Maria scrambled back. "What's happening?" Emma asked, her voice tight with fear. Marcus was already moving, checking the door locks, scanning the apartment for exits. "They found us." Marcus moved fast. 20 years of combat training took over, his body operating on instinct while his mind calculated angles and options. "Back door," he said sharply. "Is there a back door?" Maria shook her head, her face white with terror. "Fire escape! Through the bedroom window!" "Go, both of you, now!" Emma grabbed Maria's arm. "What about you?" "I'll be right behind you. Move!" Titan was already at the bedroom door, his body tense, ears flat against his skull. He knew the rhythm of danger as well as Marcus did. Emma and Maria ran. Marcus pulled his phone and dialed Torres. She answered on the first ring. "We've got company. Black SUV outside. Armed hostiles. Unknown number. I'm getting the witnesses out through the fire escape. I need backup at..." The front door exploded inward. Marcus dropped the phone and moved. The first man through the door was big, professional, carrying himself like ex-military. He had maybe half a second to register Marcus before a fist connected with his throat. He went down, choking. The second man was faster. He got his weapon up, but Titan was already airborne. 80 pounds of trained military canine hit him in the chest, and the gun went flying. Marcus heard the man scream as Titan's jaws found his forearm. "Halten!" Marcus commanded. Titan held, his teeth locked but not crushing. The man writhed beneath him, sobbing with pain and fear. A third figure appeared in the doorway. Marcus recognized him, one of Brandon's friends from the lobby, the one who'd been recording. The man had a gun aimed at Marcus's head. "Don't move, soldier boy." Marcus went still. "Call off the dog. Titan, aus!" Titan released his grip, but didn't move from the man's chest. His growl was low, constant, a warning that needed no translation. "Smart." The gunman stepped into the apartment, keeping his weapon trained on Marcus. "Mr. Hartwell wants to have a conversation with you." "I'm not much of a talker." "That's okay. He doesn't need you to talk. He just needs you to listen." The gunman smiled. "And then he needs you to disappear." Marcus heard it then. Footsteps on the fire escape. Multiple sets. Moving up. They had men outside, too. Emma and Maria were walking into a trap. "Emma!" Marcus shouted. "Go back! Go!" The gunman pistol-whipped him across the face. Marcus staggered, but didn't fall. Blood poured from a cut above his eye. "Shut up," the gunman snarled. "One more word and I put a bullet in your skull." Marcus said nothing, but his eyes tracked to the window, calculating, planning. 3 seconds later, he heard Emma scream. Something broke inside Marcus then. Something that had been carefully controlled for 20 years. Catherine's face flashed through his mind. Catherine screaming. Catherine dying. Catherine, whom he couldn't save. Not again. Never again. Marcus moved. The gunman fired, but Marcus was already inside his guard. He grabbed the weapon, twisted, felt bones snap. The gun discharged into the ceiling. Marcus drove his elbow into the man's temple. Once. Twice. The gunman dropped. Marcus didn't stop to check if he was breathing. He grabbed the fallen weapon and sprinted for the bedroom. "Titan, calm!" The German shepherd was at his side in an instant, leaving the second man whimpering on the floor. Marcus hit the bedroom at full speed. The window was open. The fire escape was empty. But on the landing below, 2 men were dragging Emma and Maria toward a waiting van. Emma was fighting. God, she was fighting so hard. Kicking, scratching, biting. One of the men backhanded her across the face, and she went limp. Marcus didn't think. He jumped. 2 stories. He hit the ground rolling, absorbing the impact with his shoulder. Pain exploded through his body, but he was already up, already moving. The first man turned just in time to catch Marcus's fist with his face. He went down and didn't get up. The second man dropped Maria and reached for his weapon. Titan hit him before he could draw. This time, Marcus didn't call the dog off. The man's screams echoed off the alley walls as Titan's jaws found his shoulder and tore. "Emma!" Marcus dropped to his knees beside her. "Emma, can you hear me?" Her eyes fluttered open. Blood trickled from her split lip, the same lip Brandon had split 2 nights ago. "Marcus?" "I'm here. You're safe. Can you stand?" Emma nodded weakly. Marcus helped her up, supporting most of her weight. Maria was already on her feet, her eyes wild with terror.
"There are more of them. I heard them on the radio. More are coming."
Sirens wailed in the distance. Torres. "This way." Marcus guided them toward the mouth of the alley. "FBI is coming. We just need to—" A black SUV screeched to a halt, blocking their exit. The doors opened. Brandon Hartwell stepped out. He wasn't wearing his expensive suit anymore. He was dressed in black tactical gear, like a child playing soldier. but the gun in his hand was very real. Going somewhere? Marcus pushed Emma behind him. Titan crouched at his side, a growl building in his chest. It's over, Brandon. The FBI is 3 minutes out. You can't disappear all of us. Watch me. Brandon's eyes were wild, desperate, the eyes of a man who had never been told no, and couldn't process reality when it finally caught up with him. You think you're some kind of hero? You think you can swoop in and save the day? I think you're going to prison. Whether it's for trafficking or murder is up to you. Murder? Brandon laughed. It was not a sane sound. You don't understand. Nobody touches my family. Nobody threatens what we've built. Not the FBI, not some washed-up Navy grunt. Nobody. Your father built an empire on suffering. It's going to fall. Tonight or tomorrow or next week, it's going to fall. The only question is whether you fall with it. Brandon's gun hand trembled. Shut up. You could walk away right now, testify against your father, cut a deal. You're young enough to rebuild a life. I said shut up. Or you can pull that trigger and spend the rest of your life in a cage. Your choice, Brandon. Your choice. The sirens were getting closer. Brandon's eyes darted toward the sound, then back to Marcus. You know what my father always told me? Brandon's voice cracked. He said the strong take what they want. The weak give it away. And anyone who gets in your way is just an obstacle to be removed. Your father is wrong. My father is never wrong. Your father is a monster. And you're becoming one just like him. Something shifted in Brandon's face. For just a moment, Marcus saw something human behind the rage. Something broken. Then it was gone. Say goodbye, hero. Brandon raised the gun. 2 gunshots split the night. But they didn't come from Brandon's weapon. Brandon staggered, his eyes going wide with shock. He looked down at his chest, where 2 red flowers were blooming against his black tactical vest. His gun clattered to the ground. He fell to his knees. Special Agent Rachel Torres emerged from behind the SUV, her weapon still raised, her face hard as stone. Federal agent, everyone on the ground, now! The driver of the SUV, one of Victor Hartwell's security men, threw his hands up and dropped. Torres moved forward, kicking Brandon's gun away, her eyes never leaving Marcus. Cole? I'm good. The witnesses are intact. Torres looked at Emma and Maria, huddled behind Marcus, then at Brandon, bleeding on the ground. EMS is 2 minutes out. We need to secure this scene. There are more inside the building, at least 3 down. Torres spoke into her radio, calling for additional units. More sirens converged on the alley. Brandon was still conscious, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He looked up at Marcus with eyes that held neither fear nor remorse, only confusion. I don't understand, he whispered. I was supposed to win. I always win. Marcus crouched beside him, not gently, not with sympathy. You lost the moment you thought you were above consequences. Every bully does, eventually. My father. Your father is next. Brandon's eyes widened. Then they rolled back, and he slumped to the ground. Torres holstered her weapon. He'll live. More's the pity. You got here fast. I was already on my way when you called. Had a team staged 3 blocks out. Torres met Marcus's eyes. I've been waiting for this night for 3 years, Cole. 3 years of watching the Hartwells destroy people and getting told to stand down. Who told you to stand down? People above my pay grade. People who got phone calls from senators and judges and police commissioners. Torres's jaw tightened. But tonight they crossed a line. Attempted murder of federal witnesses. Attempted murder of a Navy officer. Even Victor Hartwell can't bury that. Don't underestimate him. I'm not, which is why we're moving now. Torres turned to Emma and Maria. Ladies, I need you to come with me. We have a safe house prepared. Emma looked at Marcus. What about you? I'll be fine. Go with Agent Torres. She'll keep you safe. Marcus, Emma's voice broke. Thank you for everything. Marcus nodded once. Don't thank me yet. This isn't over. I know. Emma reached out and touched his arm. But you didn't have to do any of this. You could have walked away that first night. You could have left me in that lobby and pretended you didn't see. No. Marcus's voice was quiet. I couldn't. Emma held his gaze for a long moment. Then Torres led her and Maria toward a waiting FBI vehicle. Marcus watched them go. Then he looked down at Brandon Hartwell, unconscious and bleeding on the concrete. One down, he murmured. One to go. Titan pressed against his leg, and Marcus reached down to scratch behind the dog's ears. Come on, boy. We've got work to do. Victor Hartwell learned about his son's arrest at 11:47 p.m. He was in his penthouse office when his personal lawyer called with the news. For 30 seconds, Victor said nothing. His face showed nothing. Then he very carefully set down the phone and swept everything off his desk. Crystal decanters shattered. Papers flew. An antique lamp crashed against the wall. Sir? His security chief appeared in the doorway. Is everything? Get out. Sir, we need to discuss. I said get out. The security chief retreated. Victor stood alone in his ruined office, breathing hard, his manicured hands trembling with a rage he hadn't felt in decades. Brandon, his idiot, impulsive, uncontrollable son. Everything Victor had built, the empire, the connections, the carefully constructed web of power and influence, was suddenly vulnerable because his son couldn't keep his hands to himself. The phone rang again. Victor answered without looking at the caller ID. What? Mr. Hartwell. The voice was calm, accented, cold. We have a problem. Victor went still. He knew that voice. Everyone in his organization knew that voice. Mr. Volkov, I was just about to call you. Were you? The voice held no warmth, no flexibility. Then perhaps you can explain why my shipment was seized 2 hours ago, why 3 of my men are in federal custody, and why your son is currently in surgery at St. Mary's Hospital. Victor's blood ran cold. The shipment was seized? The shipment was seized. The warehouse was raided. And every contact I have in Virginia is telling me the same thing. The FBI has turned off the lights. No more protection. No more blind eyes. A pause. Someone talked, Mr. Hartwell. Someone who knows about our arrangement. The receptionist. The one Brandon couldn't leave alone. Yes, I know about her. Volkov's voice hardened. I also know about the other woman, Maria Rodriguez, the one who saw too much last month. I was handling it. You were handling nothing. Your son created this mess, and now it's spreading. By morning, every federal agency in the country will be looking at your hotel, your accounts, and your connections. Victor's hands were shaking. What do you want me to do? I want you to clean this up, permanently. How? The FBI has both women in protective custody. Then get to them before they testify. You have people inside. Use them. And the Navy officer? Cole? Silence on the line. Then Volkov spoke again, his voice barely above a whisper. Lieutenant Commander Marcus Cole, former SEAL Team 6, 3 combat tours, classified operations across 4 continents. The man is a ghost, Mr. Hartwell. He has killed more professionals than your son has assaulted secretaries. So what do? We do nothing. My organization is already distancing itself from your operation. By tomorrow, every account will be closed, every record will be erased, and everyone who can connect us to you will have new instructions. You're abandoning me? I'm protecting my investment. You should do the same. Another pause. One last piece of advice, Mr. Hartwell. The Navy officer is coming for you. He's already taken your son. He won't stop until he takes everything. Then I'll stop him first. You can try. Volkov almost sounded amused. Others have tried before. They're all dead. A click. Goodbye, Mr. Hartwell. It has been a profitable relationship. I'm sorry it has to end this way. The line went dead. Victor stood frozen, the phone in his hand, the weight of everything crashing down around him. For the first time in 40 years, Victor Hartwell was afraid. And that fear made him dangerous. The safe house was a nondescript townhouse in a federal housing complex, surrounded by unmarked vehicles and patrolled by agents who didn't smile. Emma sat in a bare room, her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee that had gone cold an hour ago. Maria was in the room next door, giving her statement to a team of investigators. The door opened. Special Agent Torres entered, her face unreadable. "How are you holding up?" Emma almost laughed. "I've been threatened, assaulted, fired, kidnapped, and shot at in the past 48 hours. How do you think I'm holding up?" Torres sat down across from her. "Fair point. Is Marcus okay?" "He's being treated for minor injuries. He'll be fine." Torres paused. "He refused to leave the hospital until we confirmed you were secure." Something warm flickered in Emma's chest. She pushed it down. Now was not the time. What happens now? Now we build a case. Your testimony, Maria's testimony, the evidence we seized tonight. It's more than we've ever had. Victor Hartwell is going to prison. You sound confident. I am confident. Torres leaned forward. But I need to be honest with you, Emma. The Hartwells have powerful friends. Judges, politicians, law enforcement. Some of them will try to protect Victor. Some of them will try to silence you. I'm not going to be silenced. I know. That's why you're here. Torres's expression softened. You're braver than you know. Most people would have taken the money. Most people would have looked the other way. I couldn't. Emma stared at her cold coffee. I kept thinking about all the women before me, all the ones who signed those papers, all the ones who disappeared. Her voice dropped. I couldn't be another name on that list. You won't be. Torres stood up. Get some rest. Tomorrow is going to be a long day. Torres left. Emma sat alone in the silence, listening to the hum of the heater and the distant murmur of voices from other rooms. She thought about her mother, still fighting in that hospital bed. She thought about Maria, pouring out her trauma to strangers. She thought about all the girls in those VIP suites, the ones whose names no one knew. And she thought about Marcus, a stranger who had stepped between her and violence, a man who had lost his wife and channeled his grief into protecting others, a warrior who had found her in a hotel lobby and refused to look away. Emma didn't believe in fate. She had seen too much suffering to believe in a universe that cared. But sitting in that safe house, surrounded by federal agents who actually wanted to help, she allowed herself to wonder. Maybe God did put certain people in certain places at certain times. Maybe some witnesses were chosen. And maybe, just maybe, courage was contagious. At 3:47 a.m., Marcus Cole walked through the doors of St. Mary's Hospital. He was battered. His face was bruised. His shoulder ached from the 2-story jump. But he kept walking. The night nurse recognized him immediately. Commander Cole, you should be resting. I need to see Grace Winters. room 412.
Sir, visiting hours are...
Please. Something in his voice stopped her. She looked at his face, at the exhaustion and determination etched into every line.
5 minutes, she said quietly. I didn't see you.
Marcus nodded his thanks and walked to the elevator. Grace was awake when he entered. Her eyes, bright despite the illness ravaging her body, found him in the darkness.
You've been busy, she said.
Marcus sank into the chair beside her bed. You could say that.
Is Emma safe?
She's in FBI custody, protected.
And the men who hurt her?
One is in surgery down the hall. The others are in federal lockup. Grace nodded slowly.
Good.
They sat in silence for a moment. The machines beeped their steady rhythm. Outside, the world was dark and cold. Why are you here, Commander Cole? Marcus looked at his hands. I don't know. I just needed to see you.
No.
Grace's voice was gentle but firm. You needed someone to tell you that you did the right thing. Marcus raised his eyes to meet hers.
You did,
Grace continued.
You protected my daughter. You fought for women you'd never met. You put yourself in harm's way for people who couldn't defend themselves.
She reached out and took his hand. Her grip was weak but warm.
That's not nothing, Marcus. That's everything.
Marcus felt something crack inside his chest, a wall he'd built years ago. I couldn't save my wife.
I know.
I've spent 10 years trying to make up for that, trying to prove that her death meant something.
And has it? Marcus was quiet for a long moment.
I don't know. Some nights I think I've saved enough people to balance the scales. Other nights I close my eyes and see her face, and it feels like nothing I do will ever be enough. Grace squeezed his hand.
Let me tell you something about grief, young man. It doesn't ask permission to stay. It doesn't care about balance or redemption or making things right. It just is.
Her eyes glistened.
But love is the same way. It doesn't ask permission either. It just shows up, sometimes in the most broken places, and it refuses to leave.
I'm not sure I understand.
You will, Grace smiled. Take care of my daughter, Marcus. Not because you owe her, not because you're trying to make up for the past, but because she's worth caring for. And so are you.
Marcus couldn't speak. He just held her hand and let the tears fall. Outside the window, the first light of dawn was breaking over the horizon. A new day was beginning, and somewhere in that new day, justice was waiting. At 6 a.m., Victor Hartwell made his move. He had spent the night calling in favors, burning through connections, liquidating assets. By dawn, he had assembled a team of the best lawyers money could buy, and prepared a plan that would either save his empire or destroy everyone who threatened it. He wasn't running. Running was for cowards. Running was for men who didn't understand power. Victor Hartwell understood power better than anyone, and he was about to show Marcus Cole exactly what that meant. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Victor read it once, twice, 3 times. Then he smiled. The message was simple. The witness in room 412 is unprotected. Visiting hours begin at 8 a.m. Victor deleted the message and began to dial. If Marcus Cole wanted a war, Victor Hartwell would give him one. And this time, Victor would make sure there were no survivors. Marcus was still sitting beside Grace's bed when his phone buzzed. A text from Fuller. Intercepted communication. Hartwell knows about room 412. Get her out. Now. Marcus was on his feet before he finished reading. Grace, I need you to listen to me very carefully. Grace saw his face and understood immediately.
They're coming.
Yes.
For me?
To get to Emma. To get to me. Marcus was already moving, checking the corridor through the narrow window in the door. "I'm getting you out of here."
Marcus, I can barely walk.
"Then I'll carry you."
Don't be ridiculous. I weigh
110 pounds. I've carried wounded men twice your size through worse places. Marcus turned back to her, and his eyes were hard. "Grace, I made a promise to your daughter. I intend to keep it." Grace studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded.
Help me up.
Marcus disconnected the monitors, ignoring the alarms that immediately began shrieking. He wrapped Grace in her blanket and lifted her as gently as he could. She weighed almost nothing. The cancer had stolen so much of her. But her arms went around his neck with surprising strength. "Tighten," Marcus commanded. The German shepherd moved to the door, alert, ready. They stepped into the corridor. 2 nurses were already running toward them, drawn by the alarms. "Sir, you can't—" "This woman is in danger. Call security. Tell them to lock down the 4th floor. Now." Something in his voice made them obey without question. Marcus moved fast, his military training taking over. Stairwell, not elevator. Harder to ambush in a stairwell. Titan ran ahead, checking each landing before Marcus descended. They had made it to the 2nd floor when Marcus heard footsteps above them. Heavy. Purposeful. Multiple sets. "They're in the building," he muttered. Grace's grip tightened on his neck.
Put me down.
"No."
Marcus, you can't fight while carrying me.
"Put me down and do what you do." "I'm not leaving you." "You're not leaving me. You're protecting me." Grace's voice was fierce. "I didn't survive 2 years of cancer to die in a stairwell. Put me down and stop these men." Marcus hesitated for half a second. Then he set her down against the wall, positioning her behind the door. "Stay here. Don't move. Don't make a sound."
Marcus,
he turned back. Grace grabbed his hand.
Come back to me. My daughter needs you alive.
Marcus squeezed her hand once. Then he was gone. The first man came through the stairwell door 30 seconds later. He was professional. Black tactical gear, suppressed weapon, moving with trained precision. But he wasn't expecting an ambush in the space between floors. Marcus hit him from above, dropping from the landing like a shadow. His arm went around the man's throat, cutting off air and blood simultaneously. The man struggled. Marcus held on. 4 seconds. 5. 6. The man went limp. Marcus lowered him to the ground and took his weapon. A Glock 19 with a suppressor. Standard for wet work. Footsteps above. At least 2 more. Marcus pressed himself against the wall and waited. The second man came down cautiously, weapon raised. He saw his fallen partner and hesitated. That hesitation cost him everything. Marcus fired twice. Both shots center mass. The man crumpled. The third man opened fire from above, bullets sparking off the metal railing. Marcus rolled, returning fire, forcing the shooter back. "Titan! Fast!" The German shepherd exploded up the stairs like a missile. The third man screamed as 80 pounds of trained attack dog hit him. Marcus followed, climbing the stairs 3 at a time. The third man was down, Titan's jaws locked around his gun arm. "Aus!" Titan released. Marcus kicked the man's weapon away and drove his knee into the man's chest, pinning him. "How many more?" The man spat blood and said nothing. Marcus pressed harder. "How many?" "Go to hell." "You first." Marcus's voice was ice. "I'm going to ask one more time. Then I'm going to let my dog finish what he started." Titan growled on cue, his bloody muzzle inches from the man's face. The man's courage broke. "2 more. Outside. In a van." "Who sent you?" "Hartwell. Victor Hartwell." "Where is he?" "I don't know. We got our orders through a contact. Marcus heard more footsteps coming up from below. Titan, come. He left the third man groaning on the landing and sprinted back down to Grace. She was exactly where he'd left her face pale, but her eyes fierce. How many? 3 down, 2 more outside. Marcus lifted her again. We're going out the back. There's a service entrance, through the basement. How do you know? Grace almost smiled. I've been in this hospital for 6 months, Marcus. I know every exit. They made it to the basement without encountering more hostiles. The service entrance opened onto a loading dock. Marcus scanned the area. Clear. Stay here. He stepped out onto the dock, weapon raised. Titan moved beside him, sniffing the air. Nothing. Marcus pulled out his phone and called Torres. I need immediate extraction. St. Mary's Hospital, rear loading dock. Grace Winters is with me. Hartwell sent a team. Already on my way. 4 minutes. Make it 2. He hung up and returned to Grace. She was sitting against the wall, her breathing labored, her face gray with exhaustion. The exertion had taken a terrible toll. How are you holding up? I've been better. Grace managed a weak smile. But I've been worse, too. Marcus sat down beside her. Titan lay down at her feet, his amber eyes watchful. Emma's going to kill me for putting you through this. Emma's going to thank you for keeping me alive. Grace reached out and patted Titan's head. Both of you. They sat in silence for a moment. The morning sun was rising, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Can I ask you something, Marcus? Anything. After this is over, after the Hartwells are in prison and Emma is safe, what will you do? Marcus considered the question. I don't know. I came here to say goodbye to a dying friend. Instead, I found... He trailed off. You found my daughter. I found a fight worth fighting. Is that all you found? Marcus looked at her. Grace's eyes held a knowing warmth that reminded him painfully of Catherine. Grace, you don't have to answer. I'm just an old woman with too much time to think. She squeezed his hand. But I've watched you these past 2 days. I've seen the way you look at her, and I've seen the way she looks at you. We barely know each other. Sometimes that's enough. Sometimes a single moment can tell you everything you need to know about a person's heart. Before Marcus could respond, the squeal of tires announced Torres's arrival. A black SUV skidded to a stop at the loading dock. Torres jumped out, weapon drawn. We need to move. Now! Marcus helped Grace into the vehicle. Titan jumped in beside her. What's happening? Marcus asked as Torres accelerated away from the hospital. Victor Hartwell just went nuclear. He's called in every favor he has. 2 federal judges have issued conflicting orders. The state attorney general is demanding we release Brandon. And someone leaked Emma's location to the press. The safe house is compromised? We moved her an hour ago. She's secure. Torres glanced at him in the rearview mirror. But Hartwell is getting desperate. Desperate men do stupid things. How desperate? Desperate enough to order a hit on a cancer patient in a hospital. Torres's jaw tightened. We need to end this today, Cole, before anyone else gets hurt. What do you need from me? Your testimony. Everything you witnessed, everything you know. We're taking this to a federal grand jury in 3 hours. And Victor? Being arrested as we speak. Torres allowed herself a small smile. Turns out, ordering the murder of federal witnesses is the one crime even his friends won't help him cover up. Marcus looked out the window. The city was waking up. Ordinary people starting ordinary days, unaware of the battle that had been fought in their midst. Is Emma okay? Torres nodded. She's scared, But she's strong, stronger than she knows. She gets that from her mother. In the back seat, Grace smiled. Victor Hartwell's arrest was not quiet. It happened at 8:15 a.m. on the steps of his own hotel, in front of a crowd of reporters who had been tipped off by someone inside the FBI. Victor emerged from the front entrance expecting to meet his lawyers. Instead, he found himself surrounded by federal agents. "Victor Hartwell, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, human trafficking, racketeering, and obstruction of justice." Victor's face went white, then red.
"This is outrageous. I'll have your badges. I'll have your careers. Do you have any idea?
"You have the right to remain silent." The lead agent's voice was flat, bored, the voice of a man who had heard every threat in the book. "I suggest you use it." They cuffed him in front of the cameras. Every major network carried it live. In her new safe house, Emma watched the footage on a small television, tears streaming down her face. "It's over," Maria whispered beside her. "It's really over." "Not yet," Emma wiped her eyes. "We still have to testify." "Are you scared?" "Terrified." Emma took a deep breath. "But I'm more scared of what happens if we don't, if we stay silent, if we let men like Victor Hartwell keep winning." Maria nodded slowly. "When I worked at the hotel, I used to dream about this, about someone stopping them. I thought it was impossible." "So did I." "What changed?" Emma thought about Marcus, about Titan, about her mother's fierce eyes and unwavering faith. "I stopped being alone." The grand jury convened at 11 a.m. Emma testified first. She wore a simple blue dress that her mother had chosen for her, and she walked into the courtroom with her head held high. The questions were brutal. Victor's lawyers, even in custody, he had an army of them, attacked her credibility, her motives, her character. They suggested she was a disgruntled employee seeking revenge. They implied she had invited Brandon's attention. Emma answered every question calmly, clearly, and without flinching. "Did you or did you not refuse a direct request from Brandon Hartwell on the night in question?" "I refused his request that I accompany him to his hotel suite. Yes." "And isn't it true that refusing such requests could be considered insubordination?" "Refusing to be sexually harassed is not insubordination, sir. It's self-respect." A murmur ran through the courtroom. The lawyer pressed on. "You claim Mr. Hartwell struck you, but isn't it possible you simply fell?" "No." "How can you be sure?" "Because I remember his hand. I remember his ring cutting my lip. I remember the sound he made when he hit me, like it was satisfying to him." Emma's voice didn't waver. "And I remember the look in his eyes. The look of a man who had done this before and expected to do it again." The lawyer had no response. Maria testified next. Her story was harder to tell. The things she had seen, the things she had heard, the things that haunted her dreams. But she told it anyway. Then came the evidence. Agent Torres presented the files recovered from the hotel's servers, the ones Victor thought he had destroyed. Financial records showing payments to corrupt officials. Guest registries documenting the movement of trafficking victims. Security footage that had been erased, but actually backed up to a federal cloud. And finally, testimony from 3 of Victor's former employees, men who had flipped in exchange for reduced sentences, confirming everything. The grand jury deliberated for 47 minutes. They returned indictments on all counts. Marcus testified in a closed session. His evidence was classified, involving connections between the Hartwell operation and international trafficking networks that the FBI had been tracking for years. When he emerged, Torres was waiting. "It's done. Victor and Brandon are both going away for a very long time." "How long?" "Victor's looking at life without parole." Brandon, if he survives his injuries, will be an old man before he sees daylight again. Marcus nodded slowly. Something tight in his chest began to loosen. And Emma? Maria? Witness protection is available if they want it. New identities, new lives, somewhere far from Virginia. Torres paused. But Emma turned it down. What? She said she's done running, done hiding.
Torres almost smiled. She said she wants to stay and help other women who've been through what she experienced. Marcus felt something warm spread through his chest. Pride, admiration, something else he wasn't ready to name. Where is she now? St. Christopher's VA Hospital. She wanted to be with her mother for the verdict. Marcus started walking. Cole, he turned back. Torres extended her hand. Thank you. For everything. We couldn't have done this without you. Marcus shook her hand. You would have found another way. Maybe, but it wouldn't have been this way. And this way was better. She walked away. Marcus stood alone for a moment, processing everything that had happened in the past 3 days. A chance encounter in a hotel lobby. A woman crying on the floor. A choice to intervene instead of walk away. Such small moments, such enormous consequences. He started walking again. Titan fell into step beside him. Grace was awake when Marcus entered her room. So was Emma. They were sitting together on the bed, Emma's head on her mother's shoulder, their hands intertwined. When they saw Marcus, both faces lit up. You heard? Emma asked. I heard. They're going to prison. Both of them, for the rest of their lives. I know. Emma stood and crossed the room. For a moment, she just looked at him. This stranger who had become something more. This warrior who had fought for her when no one else would. Then she hugged him. Marcus froze for half a second. Then his arms went around her and he held her tight. Thank you, Emma whispered against his chest. Thank you. You did this. You and Maria. You just saved my life. Multiple times. Emma pulled back and looked up at him, tears glistening in her eyes. Don't diminish that. Don't pretend it doesn't matter. I'm not pretending anything. Then accept the gratitude, you stubborn man. Grace's voice came from the bed, amused and warm. Lord knows you've earned it. Marcus almost laughed. It had been so long since he'd laughed. Emma pulled away and wiped her eyes. What happens now? With you, I mean. I have to report back to my unit. Finish my leave paperwork. Marcus paused. Visit an old friend. Commander Hayes. He doesn't have long. Days, maybe. I want to be there. Emma nodded, understanding. Will you come back? After? Marcus looked at her. At her light blonde hair, loose now, falling around her shoulders. At her blue eyes, still red from crying but bright with something that looked like hope. Do you want me to come back? Yes. Emma's voice was small but certain. I know we barely know each other. I know this has all been crazy and traumatic and nothing like normal life, but... But I feel like I know you. The real you. Not the surface stuff, your favorite food or your birthday or whatever, but the stuff that matters, your character, your heart. She took a breath. And I'd like to know the rest, if you're willing. Marcus was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice rough with emotion he couldn't quite contain. My wife died 8 years ago. I loved her more than I knew it was possible to love anyone. And when she died, I thought that part of me died too. Emma waited. I've spent 8 years proving myself wrong, building walls, keeping people at arm's length, telling myself that love was a vulnerability I couldn't afford. And now? Marcus reached out and touched her face, gently, reverently.
Now I'm thinking maybe I was wrong about that, too. Emma's breath caught. From the bed, Grace made a sound that might have been a sob or might have been a laugh. "Oh, for heaven's sake, just kiss her already!" Marcus looked at Grace, then at Emma. Then he kissed her. It was soft, tentative, the kiss of two broken people who had forgotten what hope felt like and were just beginning to remember. When they parted, Emma was crying again, but this time she was smiling too.
"Come back," she whispered. "Promise me he'll come back." "I promise." Titan barked once, as if adding his own seal of approval. And in that moment, in that small hospital room, something new was born. Something that had seemed impossible just 3 days ago. A future. Commander William Hayes died on December 27th, 4 days after Victor Hartwell's arrest. Marcus was at his bedside, holding his hand, when it happened. "You did good, son," Hayes whispered near the end. His voice was barely audible, but his eyes were clear. "I heard about Virginia, about the hotel, about the girl. How did you—" "I still have friends. Old sailors talk." Hayes managed a weak smile. "I'm proud of you, Marcus. You found something worth fighting for." "I found someone worth fighting for." "Even better." Hayes's grip tightened on Marcus's hand. "Promise me something." "Anything." "Don't waste this second chance. Don't let fear rob you of the years you have left." Hayes's eyes glistened. "I spent too much of my life married to the Navy. I loved the service, but I lost 2 wives and 3 children to the job. When I look back now, I see all the moments I missed, all the connections I sacrificed." "Commander, I'm dying, Marcus. Let me say what I need to say." Hayes took a shuddering breath. "You're the best sailor I ever trained. But more than that, you're a good man, a man of honor, a man who stands in the gap when others run. I learned from you. Then learn this final lesson." Hayes's voice was fading. "Go back to her. Build something that lasts. And when you're old and gray and lying in a bed like this, make sure you have no regrets." "I will. Promise me." "I promise." Hayes smiled. The tension in his face eased. His eyes drifted closed. Tell her she's lucky." "I'm the lucky one." "Then you're both lucky." Hayes's voice was barely a whisper now. "That's how it should be." His hand went slack in Marcus's grip. The monitors flatlined, and Commander William Hayes, United States Navy, retired, passed into whatever waits beyond this world. Marcus sat beside him for a long time. Titan lay at his feet, sensing the weight of the moment. Finally, Marcus stood. He straightened Hayes's blanket. He adjusted the flag that someone had draped across the foot of the bed. Then he pulled out his phone and dialed Emma's number. She answered on the first ring. "Marcus, how is he?" "He's gone." Silence. Then, "I'm so sorry." "He went peacefully. He wasn't in pain." Marcus's voice cracked. "He told me to come back to you." "He did?" "He said I shouldn't waste my second chance." Emma was quiet for a moment. "Is he right? Am I your second chance?" "Yes." Marcus looked at Hayes one last time, at the weathered face, now peaceful, at the hands that had taught him to fight, to lead, to serve. "And I'm not going to waste it." "When are you coming back?" "Tomorrow. I have arrangements to make for Hayes." "But tomorrow, I'm on a plane. I'll be waiting." "Emma?" "Yes?" "I love you." The words came out before he could stop them. 3 days, They had known each other for 3 days. It was insane. It was irrational. It was completely, utterly true. Emma was silent for so long, Marcus thought the call had dropped. Then, quietly, fiercely, "I love you too." Marcus closed his eyes. Outside the window, the sun was setting. Another day was ending. But somewhere in Virginia, a woman with light blonde hair was waiting for him. And for the first time in 8 years, Lieutenant Commander Marcus Cole had somewhere to come home to. Marcus landed in Virginia on December 28th. The flight had been delayed twice, and he'd spent 6 hours staring out the window at clouds that seemed determined to keep him from getting home. Home. The word still felt strange. 3 days ago, he didn't have a home. He had bases. He had deployments. He had temporary quarters and military housing and hotel rooms that all looked the same. Now, he had Emma. She was waiting at the arrivals gate. Her light blonde hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she was wearing jeans and a sweater that looked borrowed. She saw him before he saw her, and she was running before he cleared the security barrier. Marcus dropped his bag and caught her. They held each other for a long time, neither speaking, neither needing to. Around them, the airport crowd flowed past, travelers reuniting with families, business people hurrying to meetings, the endless current of ordinary life. None of it mattered. "You came back," Emma whispered against his chest. "I promised I would." "I know, but I was scared. I kept thinking." "Stop thinking." Marcus pulled back and looked at her face. The bruises were fading, but the shadows under her eyes told him she hadn't been sleeping. "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." Emma nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. Okay," tightened Bart from beside Marcus's duffel bag, demanding attention. Emma laughed and knelt to embrace the German shepherd. "I missed you too, boy." Titan's tail wagged so hard his whole body shook. "How's your mother?" Marcus asked. Emma's smile flickered. "She's stable. The doctors say the stress didn't help, but she's fighting." She stood up, wiping her eyes. "She wants to see you." "Then let's go." Grace was sitting up in bed when they arrived, looking stronger than Marcus had expected. Her eyes lit up when she saw him. "You're back." "Didn't I promise?" "You did, but promises are easy to make and hard to keep." Grace reached out her hand. "Come here, let me look at you." Marcus approached the bed. Grace studied his face with the intensity of a mother examining a potential son-in-law, which, he realized with a start, was exactly what she was doing. "You've been crying," Grace observed. "For your friend." "Yes." "Good. A man who doesn't cry for his friends isn't worth trusting." Grace squeezed his hand. "Sit down. We need to talk." Marcus sat. Emma hovered near the door, uncertain whether to stay or go. "You too, sweetheart," Grace said. "This concerns both of you." Emma moved to sit beside Marcus. Their hands found each other automatically. Grace watched them with a small smile. "I've been doing a lot of thinking these past few days, about life, about death, about what matters and what doesn't." "Mom, hush, let me finish." Grace's voice was gentle but firm. "When I first got sick, I was terrified. Not of dying, I made my peace with God a long time ago, but of leaving Emma alone. She's been taking care of me for 2 years, sacrificing everything. Her dreams, her future, her chance at happiness." Emma's grip on Marcus's hand tightened. "But then you showed up." Grace looked at Marcus. A stranger in a hotel lobby. A man who had every reason to walk away and chose to stay. "And I watched my daughter come alive for the first time in years." "Grace, you saved her life. Multiple times. But more than that, you gave her hope. You showed her that good men still exist. That courage isn't just something in storybooks." Grace's eyes glistened. And now I can face whatever comes next, knowing that she won't be alone.
I'm not going anywhere, Marcus said quietly. I promise you that.
I know you're not. I can see it in your eyes.
Grace smiled.
You love her.
Yes.
Say it, out loud, so she can hear it.
Marcus turned to Emma. Her eyes were wide, vulnerable, hopeful. I love you, he said. I know it's fast. I know it's crazy. I know we've only known each other for a few days. But I've spent 20 years learning to recognize truth, and this is the truest thing I've ever felt. Emma's breath caught.
Marcus,
you don't have to say it back. You don't have to feel the same way. But I wanted you to know. I needed you to know.
Emma leaned forward and kissed him. Soft, certain, real.
I love you too,
she whispered against his lips.
I don't care if it's fast. I don't care if it's crazy. I care that it's true.
From the bed, Grace made a sound that was half laugh, half sob. Well, that's settled then. The door opened, and a nurse entered with a chart. Mrs. Winters, Dr. Chen wants to see you for your afternoon checkup. She stopped, taking in the scene. Oh, sorry. I can come back. No need. Grace waved her in. We were just finishing up. She looked at Marcus and Emma. You two go. Get some air. I'll be fine. Are you sure? I'm positive. I need to flirt with Dr. Chen anyway. He's very handsome for a man his age. Emma laughed, a real laugh, the kind Marcus hadn't heard from her yet. It was beautiful. We'll be back in an hour, Emma said. Take 2. Take 3. Grace shooed them away. Young love shouldn't be spent in hospital rooms. They walked through the hospital corridors, hand in hand, Titan padding beside them. Other patients and visitors watched them pass. A battered Navy officer, a young woman with healing bruises, and a German shepherd who walked like he owned the world. What happens now? Emma asked as they reached the exit. With you, I mean. Your job. I've been thinking about that. Marcus held the door for her. My enlistment is up in 6 months. I could re-up, do another tour. That's what I always planned to do. But plans change. He looked at her. Torres offered me a job, consulting with the FBI's Human Trafficking Task Force, using my skills to help take down networks like the Hartwells. Emma's eyes widened. That's incredible. It would mean staying stateside. No more deployments. No more disappearing for months at a time. Marcus, if you want to keep serving... I've been serving for 20 years. I've done my duty 10 times over. Marcus stopped walking and turned to face her. But I've never had something to come home to. I've never had a reason to stay. And now? Now I have you. Emma's face crumpled. She threw her arms around his neck and held on tight. I don't want you to give up your career for me. I don't want you to resent me. I could never resent you. Marcus held her close. I'm not giving anything up. I'm choosing something better. They stood there in the cold December air, holding each other, while the world spun on around them. There's something else, Marcus said finally. Something I need to tell you. Emma pulled back, searching his face. What? Hayes left me something in his will. A cabin in Montana. 20 acres, mountain views, completely off the grid. Marcus paused. He said it was for when I finally found someone worth sharing it with. Emma's breath caught. Marcus, I'm not asking you to marry me. Not yet. It's too soon for that. He cupped her face in his hands. But I'm asking you to think about a future, a real future, not just surviving day to day, but building something that lasts.
I've never had that. I don't know how. Neither do I. But I'd like to learn. With you. Emma was quiet for a long moment. Marcus could see the war playing out behind her eyes. Hope versus fear. Possibility versus pain. Then she smiled. Okay. Okay? Okay. Let's build something. Her smile widened. But I get to pick the curtains. Marcus laughed. Actually laughed. For the first time and longer than he could remember. Deal. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind. Victor Hartwell's trial began on January 15th. The evidence was overwhelming. Financial records, witness testimony, security footage that his own lawyers couldn't explain away. The prosecution called 37 witnesses. The defense called 3. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Victor Hartwell was sentenced to life without parole. He would die in federal prison, his empire dismantled, his legacy destroyed. Brandon Hartwell, still recovering from his gunshot wounds, pleaded guilty to avoid trial. His lawyers negotiated a deal, 40 years, no possibility of parole for 25. The day the sentences were handed down, Emma stood on the courthouse steps and spoke to reporters. I was told to stay silent, she said, her voice steady despite the cameras, despite the crowd. I was told that speaking out would destroy me. I was told that powerful men always win. She paused. I was told wrong. The crowd erupted in applause. Beside her, Marcus watched with pride swelling in his chest. This woman, this incredible, brave, unbreakable woman, had gone from cowering on a lobby floor to standing before the nation and declaring victory. Torres appeared at his elbow. She's good at this. She's good at everything. The Bureau wants to offer her a position, victim advocacy, helping other survivors navigate the legal system. Torres smiled slightly. I thought you should know before we approach her. She'll say yes. You think? I know. Marcus watched Emma answer questions, her chin high, her eyes clear. She found her purpose, same as I did. Speaking of which, your paperwork came through. You start consulting next month. Marcus nodded. Thank you for everything. Thank me by catching more men like Victor Hartwell. Torres extended her hand. Welcome to the team, Cole. They shook. Emma found him after the press conference, flushed with adrenaline and something that looked like joy. Did you see? They listened to me. They actually listened. They'd be fools not to. Torres said the FBI wants to offer me a job. I heard. Did you also hear that I said yes? Marcus grinned. I had a feeling. Emma threw her arms around him. We're going to be colleagues. Technically, we'll be in different divisions. Details. She pulled back and kissed him. We're going to change things, Marcus. Together. We're going to make sure what happened to me never happens to anyone else. That's a big goal. I have a lot of motivation. Her eyes softened. And I have you. Maria Rodriguez testified at Victor Hartwell's trial. It was the hardest thing she'd ever done. She talked about the basement rooms, the girls who came in the night and never checked out, the screams she pretended not to hear, the bruises Brandon gave her when she saw too much. When she finished, the courtroom was silent. Several jurors were crying. After the verdict, Maria found Emma in the hallway. Thank you. Emma took her hands. For what? For being brave first. For showing me it was possible. Maria's eyes glistened. I spent 6 months hiding, afraid, convinced that if I spoke up, they would find me and kill me. But you stood in that lobby and refused to back down. You showed me what courage looks like. You showed yourself. I just opened the door. Maria shook her head. You did more than that. You gave us all hope. They embraced, 2 women who had survived the same monster,
standing together in the light. Grace Winters watched the verdict from her hospital bed. When the guilty announcement came, she closed her eyes and whispered a prayer of thanksgiving. "Mrs. Winters?" The nurse looked concerned. "Are you all right?" "I'm better than all right." Grace opened her eyes, and they were bright with tears. "My daughter is free. The men who hurt her are going to prison, and I got to live long enough to see it." "You're going to live a lot longer than that," the nurse said firmly. "Dr. Chen says your latest scans are encouraging." Grace smiled. "We'll see. But even if I don't, I can go in peace now. I can go knowing she's safe. She's loved. She's going to be okay." The nurse patted her hand. "Would you like me to call her? Let her know you're watching?" "No."
Let her have this moment. She's earned it. Grace turned back to the television, where Emma was speaking to reporters, her face radiant with hard-won victory. "That's my girl," Grace whispered. "That's my brave, beautiful girl." 6 months later, Emma stood before a crowd of survivors. The conference room was packed, women of all ages, all backgrounds, all stories. Some had been trafficked, some had been assaulted, some had been threatened into silence by men who thought power meant ownership. All of them had found their way to the foundation Emma had helped create. Second Chance Virginia. "I know why you're here," Emma began. "I know because I was you. 6 months ago, I was standing in a hotel lobby, being beaten by a man who thought he owned me. I was alone. I was afraid. And I was convinced that no one would believe me if I spoke up." She paused, letting the silence breathe. "I was wrong." Emma looked out at the faces watching her, some scared, some hopeful, some broken in ways that might never fully heal. There are people who will believe you. There are people who will fight for you. And there are people who will stand beside you no matter how dark the night gets. Her voice strengthened. "I know, because I found them. And today, I'm going to help you find them too." The room erupted in applause. Marcus watched from the back, Titan sitting quietly at his feet. Pride filled his chest. Pride and something deeper. Love. Real, lasting, unshakable love. After the presentation, Emma found him. "How did I do?" "You were incredible." "I was terrified." "Those aren't mutually exclusive." Marcus pulled her into his arms. "I'm proud of you." "I couldn't have done any of this without you." "Yes, you could have. You're the bravest person I've ever met." Emma laughed softly. "A Navy SEAL is telling me I'm brave." "A Navy SEAL who knows what courage looks like." He tilted her chin up. "And I see it every time I look at you." They kissed, soft and sweet and full of promise. "I have news," Marcus said when they parted. "Good news or bad news?" "Good, I think." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Emma's breath stopped. "Marcus." "I know we said we'd take it slow. I know it's only been 6 months. But I've been waiting my whole life for someone like you, and I don't want to wait anymore." He opened the box. The ring was simple, a single diamond on a white gold band, but it caught the light like a captured star. "Emma Winters, will you marry me?" The room had gone completely silent. Every survivor in the building was watching. Emma looked at the ring, at Marcus, at Titan, who was watching with what she could have sworn was anticipation. "Yes." The word came out as a whisper, then stronger. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes." Marcus slid the ring onto her finger. The room exploded into cheers. Emma kissed him, tears streaming down her face, laughing and crying all at once. "I love you," she said. "I love you too," Marcus held her close. Forever. Forever. The wedding was held on a warm day in late spring. The ceremony took place in the garden of Grace Winter's Rehabilitation Center, because Grace had defied every prediction and was not only alive, but getting stronger every day. She sat in the front row, wearing a pale blue dress that Emma had chosen for her, tears of joy streaming down her face as she watched her daughter walk toward the altar. Marcus waited at the end of the aisle, wearing his navy dress whites for the last time. Titan sat beside him, a bow tie attached to his collar, looking dignified and slightly embarrassed. Emma wore a simple white dress, nothing extravagant, nothing showy, just elegant and real, like her. When she reached Marcus, he took her hands. "You're beautiful," he whispered. "You not so bad yourself." The ceremony was short. Neither of them wanted speeches or readings. They'd already said everything that mattered in the months of building a life together. When the minister said, "You may kiss the bride," Marcus pulled Emma close and kissed her with everything he had. The guests erupted in applause. At the reception, Grace made a toast. "I wasn't supposed to be here," she said, her voice strong despite the tears. "The doctors gave me 6 months to live. That was 2 years ago." Laughter rippled through the crowd. "But God had other plans. He always does." Grace raised her glass. "He brought a stranger into my daughter's life at exactly the right moment. A man who refused to look away when evil was happening. A man who fought for a woman he didn't know because it was the right thing to do." She turned to Marcus. "You saved my daughter's life. But more than that, you saved her hope. You showed her that love isn't just a fairy tale. It's real. It's possible. And it's worth fighting for." Grace raised her glass higher. "To Marcus and Emma, may your love be as strong as your courage, and may you never stop fighting. For each other, for justice, and for the world you're building together." "To Marcus and Emma!" The toast echoed across the garden. Marcus held Emma's hand under the table. "Happy?" he asked. "More than I ever thought possible." "Good." He kissed her temple. "Because this is just the beginning." 1 year later, Emma stood before a congressional committee. She had been invited to testify about human trafficking, about the failures of the system, about what could be done to protect vulnerable women. "The Hartwell case was not unique," she said, her voice clear and confident. "Every day, in hotels and massage parlors and private homes across this country, women are being bought and sold like property. And every day, the men who profit from this evil are protected by a system that values wealth over justice." The committee members listened intently. "I'm not here to assign blame. I'm here to offer solutions." Emma pulled out a folder. "The Second Chance Foundation has worked with over 500 survivors in the past year. We've helped them find housing, employment, legal representation, and most importantly, hope." She looked directly at the committee chair. "But we can't do this alone. We need federal funding. We need stronger laws. We need a system that believes survivors instead of silencing them." "And what would you say to those who argue that these programs are too expensive?" the chair asked. Emma didn't hesitate. "I would say that the cost of doing nothing is higher. I would say that every woman we fail is a daughter, a sister, a mother. I would say that justice isn't expensive. It's priceless." The committee voted unanimously to expand funding for survivor services. Marcus was waiting outside when Emma emerged. "How did it go?" "They listened." Emma's face was radiant. "They actually listened." "Of course they did. You're impossible to ignore." Emma laughed and took his hand. "Ready to go home?" "Always." They walked out of the Capitol building together, Titan trotting beside them, into a future that neither of them could have imagined a year ago. A future built on courage,
on truth, on love, on the simple, powerful decision to refuse to look away. That night, Marcus and Emma sat on the porch of their Virginia home, watching the sunset. Titan lay at their feet, his gray muzzle resting on his paws, content and at peace. "Do you ever think about how different things could have been?" Emma asked. "If you hadn't been in that lobby, if you hadn't stepped forward." "Sometimes," Marcus pulled her closer. "But then I think about how things are, and I realize that everything happened exactly the way it was supposed to." "You believe that? That God put you there for a reason?" "I didn't used to. I spent a lot of years angry at God for taking Catherine,
For all the suffering I saw in my deployments. For a world that seemed designed to reward evil and punish good."
What changed? Marcus looked at her, at this woman who had transformed his life, his heart, his future. "You did." Emma's eyes glistened. "When I saw you on that floor, something clicked. Something that had been broken for a long time." Marcus took her hand. "I realized that God doesn't prevent evil. He places people in position to fight it. He gives us choices. And the choice to intervene, to stand between the predator and the prey, that's what makes us human." "That's beautiful." "It's true." Marcus kissed her forehead. "You taught me that. You and your mother and Maria and every survivor I've met since. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the presence of faith. Faith that our choices matter, that our actions have meaning, that even in the darkest moments, light is possible." Emma leaned against him, her head on his shoulder. "I love you, Marcus Cole."
"I love you too, Emma Cole."
They sat in comfortable silence, watching the last rays of sun paint the sky in shades of gold and purple and rose. And somewhere in that vast and mysterious universe, in a realm beyond human understanding, a plan continued to unfold. A plan that had placed a Navy SEAL in a hotel lobby at exactly the right moment. That had given a broken woman the courage to speak. That had turned tragedy into triumph and despair into hope. Because that's how grace works. Not through grand miracles and burning bushes, but through ordinary people making extraordinary choices. Through strangers who refuse to look away. Through warriors who protect the vulnerable. Through survivors who find their voices. And through a love that began with a single act of courage and grew into something that would change the world. This story is not just about justice. It is about how God often works quietly through ordinary people who refuse to look away.
In daily life, miracles do not always arrive with thunder. Sometimes they arrive as conscience, as a steady voice that says, "Stop," as truth preserved when silence would be easier. Scripture reminds us, "Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all who are destitute." Proverbs 31:8. If this story moved you, let it be a reminder. Your choices matter more than you know. Share this message with someone who needs hope. Leave a comment if you believe that courage still lives in this world. Subscribe so these stories can reach more hearts. And may God watch over you and your family, strengthen your resolve with compassion, and place the right people in your path when you need them most. Because the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. But when good people choose to stand, when they refuse to look away, refuse to stay silent, refuse to let fear win, evil does not triumph. Love does, courage does, and hope, once kindled, can never be extinguished. Amen.